Hi guys. So I decided to do my commemorative speech on my dad. There are many other people that actually had a big significance in my life, but I always feel like my dad was the biggest impact. Not so much because he did, a lot of great things or that he was full of wisdom, but honestly, it was really just watching him. I learned a lot. It was a big, huge influence in my life. He really, really kind of shaped every aspect of my life, and so I'm going to start with a little bit of his history. First off, he was born June 12th of 1930. So he was born during the Great Depression. He actually died 9 years this month, actually on the 26th. And he was 50 when I was born, and kind of an older parent. My mom obviously was much younger. She wasn't 50 when I was born, but I was his only child. He grew up on a farm, 30-acre farm, in Floresville, Texas. We're close to Floresville, Texas, actually. It's sat in between the Barry and Wilson County Life. His parents, which were my grandparents, were farmers. Never got a chance to meet my grandparents, actually. My grandparents died when my dad was still young. My grandfather died when he was a teen, and my grandmother died when my dad was in his early 20s. So I never got a chance to meet them. It was still 30 something years before I would come along. Um, his significance was really a lot. First off, he didn't have a great job. I mean, he was a garbage man for the city of San Antonio for almost 40 years. 39 and a half years is actually what they ended up calculating him as. And, never really did much other than just be a garbage man. And a lot of that had to do with the fact that he didn't have a chance to have an education. When he was young, if I remember correctly, he was about in the third grade or so, and his parents pulled him out of school because they needed help on the farm. And I tell my students a lot. It's like, think about it. It's like, what's going to be more important, going to school or surviving and having something to eat? So obviously they picked having something to eat over him going to school. So he was illiterate. Never got the opportunity. Not that he was a dumb man by any means. He was actually one of the smartest men that I've ever known. But he just didn't have that education. He didn't have that opportunity for that education. And so he started actually with the city. He moved out of the farm, went to go work for the city. He actually lied about his age. He was 17 when he started working for the city. And at that time, they didn't check birth records and they didn't have databases the way they do now. And so he lied about his age at the age of 17. And when he started, he said it was 18. And he started picking up the trash because manual labor, that's all he knew what to do. That's all his existence was manual labor. Growing up on the farm, everything's manual labor. And so he worked at night. I remember he first started out in the daytime, and then when the city started becoming more modernized and they got trucks instead of horses. He actually used to tell me that when he first started, part of the reason they hired him is because he knew how to work a horse and a mule. A mule and a cart. And originally, for the first few years that he was with the city, he was actually picking up the garbage using mules and a wagon. Then they later on got trucks and he worked. He decided to go nights, I guess, because the heat was too much for him during the day. And he worked at nights for about 20 years. And then he switched to daytimes right around the time that I came around. And what kind of really made an impact on me is that I always remember my dad going to work. He was never sick, even though he was. As a matter of fact, he retired at the age of 59 when I was 9 years old because of a disability. He got hurt and he had to have back surgery. And although the back surgery was a success, he wasn't able to continue working. His body was just too old and too frail, too broken by then. I mean, after 40 years of doing manual labor, I mean, your body's broken. But I remember the only time I remember him ever staying home was on a holiday, like Christmas, New Year's, things like that. And then on the first day that I had school, he always took me to school on the first day of school, which I thought that was really neat. And at that time, I didn't realize the significance of it, but now that I have kids of my own, it was a big deal at that time. That was one of the things that, kind of influenced me. It's like, his child was more important than his work, for that first day, at least for that first day. I also remember him always being at my school functions and everything. But anyways, when he actually retired, he actually had about 900 hours of paid sick time that he had accumulated over the years. So it just kind of goes to show, how often he never called in. Even when it was bad weather, he would still try to make it to work. The whole city was shut down. He would still try to make it in. A couple of times, he wasn't able to because the roads were just too bad, but he would still try to make it in. And that's one of the things, that kind of drove me is that, I remember as a child, he would come home from work. I'd be at home already by then, after school. He'd come home from work, he'd, eat dinner, take about a 20, 30-minute nap, and then he'd go right outside and he would work on the yard. And he would keep working and working and working until he couldn't see anymore. Then he'd come in and finally retire for the night. And I guess that's one of the things that kind of really, really shaped my influences was his work ethic. He never stopped working. And now I guess I'm kind of the same way. Kind of a gift and a curse at times, because I tend to do a lot, tend to take on a lot, and sometimes I don't give myself enough time to rest. But just always, working, always pushing forward, and even though he was sick, he would never complain. He would never ever let you know it. As a matter of fact, at his funeral, the priest that did his eulogy was a family, that's the same church that they had been going to for like maybe 15, 20 years. And he knew the priest really, really well. And the priest actually said that in his eulogy that he never saw him complain. He was there every Sunday, and he knew that he was sick, and they knew that he was in a lot of pain and he had a lot of medical issues. But my dad never complained. Every time that the priest asked him, so how you doing today? He's like, I'm doing fine. I'm doing okay. Thank God. And never said, oh, I'm so sick, I'm so, tired, I'm so this, nothing. Never complained. I wish I still had some more of that, because I kind of tend to complain at times. But that's one of the things that really kind of drove me is that, never quit kind of spirit. And even though, he was uneducated, he never quit. He didn't have the opportunity to move up, at work. I mean, he could have. I remember him telling me when I was a little kid, it's like, make sure you learn English, because they didn't know English. His parents only spoke Spanish. And he always pressured me to learn English, because he's like, that's the language you're going to need to know to make it in this world. He said, if I only knew a little bit of English and I knew how to read a little bit, I could have been a truck driver, for the city, which would have made him a lot more money, and he would have been able to sit and do his job rather than be hanging off the back of the trucks. Of course, he was working during the time before all the robotic trucks that we have nowadays that, are all controlled by automation. But, so he would hang on the back of the trucks, get down, pick up the garbage can, throw it in the back of the truck and put it back. And, after 40 years of doing that, left his body completely broken. But that's one of the things that really, really shaped me is just his work ethic. And even after, he retired and he recovered from his back surgery, he'd be out all day. He'd get up early in the morning still. He had no reason to be getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning. He still got up at 5 o'clock in the morning. He'd eat breakfast as soon as the sun was up. He'd go outside, start working on the yard. His yard was always, perfect. He had a lot of rose bushes. His rose bushes were his pride. Just beautiful rose bush, perfectly trimmed and pruned and everything. And, he'd work all morning long until about lunchtime. And he'd come in, take a nap for a little while. By then he was already in his 70s. And then, as soon as it cooled down again, he'd go right back out, and every day, never took a day off. Whether it be, weekday, Monday through Friday, Saturday, Sunday, he did that every day. And I think that's one of the biggest things that really kind of, influenced me a lot in that, the work ethic that I have. I'm a full-time, teacher. I have also a little part-time job after school so I can help support my family. Because as you know, teachers don't make a whole lot, and so I'm working already 60, 70 hours a week, and I'm still trying to find time to do school and trying to actually change my career. Not that teaching is a bad career. I absolutely enjoy it. I love it, but unfortunately it's just not enough to support my family in the long run. So I'm actually looking at changing a career. So I guess that never quit, never stop spirit still kind of lives on inside of me. And that was the one thing that I always remember. It says never quit, never complain, just take care of what you got to take care of, take care of business. And it's really, really shaped me a lot as being a man, growing up, to take care of my own family now. But anyway, so those are the things that really greatly influenced me. I learned a lot, like I was saying earlier about the not quitting and not stopping and just taking care of your family and taking care of business, and learned a lot about, you deal with a lot of adversity. I mean, him not knowing English, not knowing how to read, not knowing how to write. I mean, the only thing he knew was how to write a signature, and that was it. But it never stopped him. He never let that slow him down. He never let that stop him. And even though he couldn't advance in his job past being a garbage man, he still did it every day until he could no longer do it. So anyway, just wanted to say, he's been a huge impact. And like I said, his anniversary is coming up here on the 26th, and he'll be gone 9 years now. I was 24 when he passed. I'm 34 now, so it was almost 10 years now that he's passed, and he still has a huge influence on me, and think about him a lot. So anyway, so that's a little bit of my commemorative speech. So I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks.